everyone, good day. The given topic is all about the execution of cognitive and metacognitive factors, wherein we will discuss what are those cognitive and metacognitive factors of learning. But first, let us define what is cognitive and metacognitive. Cognitive, defined as the mental action or process of acquiring knowledge and understanding through thought, experience, and the senses. And metacognitive is an awareness of one's own thought, processes, and an understanding of the patterns behind them. That means cognitive is the ability to learn new things, forming memories, and making decisions. While metacognitive is the ability to examine how you process thoughts, assess one's understanding, and performance in order to be aware of their own learning and improve it. So one of the factors that I'll be discussing is about the nature of learning process. So let's define what is learning. In our daily lives, we learn. We cannot exist without learning. Learning is a very common term in our life. The process of learning is continuous, which starts right from the time of birth of an individual and continues till death. In our life, we pick up new information, knowledge, habits, skills, values, and all the things we acquire are evidences that we are learning. We all know that the teacher's main concern is to enhance the learning of the students. For example, suppose a child burns himself while playing with a candle. Next time, when he sees a burning candle, he will withdraw himself and he will avoid all burning things. Thus, he learns that if he will touch a flame, he will be burned, and he learns this by experience. So first, we will study what is learning. Psychologists often define learning as, according to Gales, learning as the behavioral modification which occurs as a result of experience as well as training. According to H.J. Closmere, describe learning as a process which leads to some behavioral change as a result of some experience, training, observation, activity, etc. According to Skinner, learning is a change in behavior due to punishment and reinforcement. So before we can get into learning, we need to go over punishment and reinforcement. Learning can be defined in many ways, but most psychologists would agree that it is a relatively permanent change in behavior that results from experience. So learning is actually a change in behavior due to experience or due to training. Now, we will focus about the nature of learning. First is, learning is a change in behavior as a result of experience. Learning is a modification of both behavior and the way of perceiving. Learning is a personalized act of an individual. An individual learns what he wants to learn on his own self-interest. Learning is a continuous lifelong process. It is a continuous process, start at birth and continues till death. And learning is a universal process. All of us have the ability and adaptability to learn. And also, learning is transferable. Learning of one situation can be easily transferred to another situation. It is called transfer of learning. Learning is not always positive. It can be negative also. It means that it is not necessary that we always learn good things. We can also learn bad things. For example, a child can learn the use of abusive language by hearing somebody speaking abusive language. So, the nature of learning can be summarized as that learning is a change in behavior, learning is a modification of behavior, learning is a transferable, learning is a lifelong process, it is a universal process, and learning can be positive or negative. Now, let's study how learning is a process. According to Kingsley and Gary, learning is a process by which behavior is originated or changed through practice or training. So, learning as a process refers to how do we learn or how learning takes place. Learning as a process includes the individual and his relationship with the environment. It means that learning is an interaction between the individual and the environment. So that's all. Thank you for watching and listening. Next topic is about goals of the learning process. We'll discuss by Miss Karen Braun.
Hi everyone, I am Karen Sanyas Brun. So I am going to discuss the goals of the learning process. Learning process is a process that people had to do in order to gain new knowledge and skills, which ultimately influences their attitude, decision, and action. Now, why do you think it was important? Simply because you must adapt your study habits to your own needs and approach, means selecting techniques that works for you and evaluating them on a regular basis to determine if you need to try something new. What is goals all about? Goals is a vision of the future or desired outcomes that an individual or group of people envision, plans, and commit to achieving. We all know that we have different goals on every aspect of our life. Just what I was achieving right now. As a reporter, my goals was present this report successful with educational learnings to all of you. Did you know that you may have your goal setting to make your goals effective to achieve? Goal setting is the first of several self-regulation processes that individuals should engage when creating a task. Before we proceed to our discussion, just take down to your notes the acronyms SMART, which stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. It is very helpful to make your goals effectively achieved. Let me discuss to our main topic and why it is important on education. Goals of learning process aims to improve students' learning and achievement while also increasing students' learning capacity. They focus on students becoming active participants in the learning process, on empowering them to become independent learners, and on motivating them to reach their full potential. And why it is important on education? Basically, it is important because learning goals empower you and your students to concentrate on what they are supposed to learn. When learning goals are explicit, they guide your students' decision on where to focus their efforts and illuminate what they should take away from a given task that matches your unwritten goals of what they should know. Goals of a teacher as an example. So that's all for my assigned topic to be discussed. Thank you for listening.
Good day, everyone. Today I will discuss the third and the fourth principle of cognitive and metacognitive factor, the construction of knowledge and strategic thinking. Here's our learning objectives. Number 1, define construction of knowledge and strategic thinking. Number 2, identify strategies in thinking and learning. Number 3, apply construction of knowledge and strategies in thinking and learning. So let us go now to our discussion. Construction of knowledge. The successful learner can link new information with existing knowledge in meaningful ways. Previous knowledge of the learner serves as the foundation for building the future knowledge. Like, for example, in elementary, we have taught to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. In high school, like solving problems, or in algebra, and in college, like statistics. We can solve problems, or we can solve bigger problems and critical problems by using our prior knowledge and linking it in the existing knowledge. So here's the keys for knowledge construction in constructivist perspective. Constructivism as a paradigm hypothesis that learning is an active, constructive process. Learner-centered activity like experimentation, research projects, field studies, films, and class discussion. In this process, the learners actively construct or create their own subjective representations of objective reality. New information is linked to prior knowledge, giving mental representation of its subjective nature. Here, the learner is an active constructor of information. Next, the background and environment of the learner. Constructivism takes into account the background and environment of the learner. There are instances that we have to consider student background and environment, like for example, teaching on how to use computer. Some learners have no idea on computer because they are living in a remote area. Habang yung iba naman, especially those living in urban area, gamay nila yung computer because they are exposed on it. Next, the hands-on experiences. Some theories of constructivism believe in learning by doing. Famous line by John Piaget, learning by doing. For example, you cannot learn how to swim in theoretical classes, but you have to jump into the water to learn. Or for example, in solving mathematical problems, hindi ka matututo kung titignan mo lang yung teacher mo nagsosolve sa blackboard, but you have to try it by yourself. But take note, learning by doing is not only physical, but mentally as well. Constructivism does not believe in transmission of knowledge from person to person. It is not simple like that. The learning to be active and long-lasting, each learner must build his own knowledge base.
Let us go now to the next topic, strategic thinking.
Let us define strategic thinking. Cognitive or thinking strategies are conscious mental activities or operations we do in order to solve a problem. In the context of learning, we often refer to them as learning strategies or tools. These often involve mind mapping, but they are ultimately the things we do inside our hearts or the thinking. The successful learner can create the use a repertoire of thinking and reasoning strategies to achieve complex learning goals. Using a variety of strategies that helps to gain more and learn easily by an individual learner. So here's the components of strategic thought and action. Tools for analysis, strategic purposes, values, visions, key goals, and action planning. And here also the basis of strategic thinking or in planning. Number 1, where we are now. Number 2, where we want to be. And number 3, how we get there. In using cognitive learning strategies, it's important to be clear about the learning task involved and what type of learning is required. Here are some strategies in thinking and learning: mind mapping, creative thinking, continuous reading, and learning style or the study habits. Since we are different individuals, we have different strategies on how we can learn easily. In organizing information for later processing, and mind mapping may be useful learning tool as it facilitates and activates the prior knowledge, classifies information into groupings, provides a strong visual representations, and reduces cognitive load. Some are creative in thinking. Continuous reading is one of the strategies that's very effective in learning. The more we read, the more knowledge we can get. We also have different strategies in learning. So how do you memorize? Some of us using mnemonic. Ito yung kukunin mo yung unang letra or letters ng word or phrase. Yung iba naman kinakanta yung content or nilalapatan ng tono. At kadalasan, nagme-memorize tuwing madaling araw kasi sinasabi mas fresh pa yung utak at that time. That's all my report. I'm Marian Calios, BSE 1C. Thank you for listening.
Good evening. Our lesson for today is all about context of learning. What does context mean? The interrelated condition in which something exists or occurs. Environment, setting, the historical context of a war. For example, to the classroom with its teacher and its materials in the case of school learning, or a social situation in the case of untutored second language learning. Context of learning is defined as the situation in which something is learned or understood, a situation that can impact how something is learned or what is taught. An example of learning context is the external learning environment, including the quality of equipment and the facilities and the training level of a teacher. Means context refers to the student perceptions of the course and the teaching learning requirements. The next is, how does context affect learning? Context shape the learning experience. By examining the multilayered world of people at work, we can begin to understand the constraints as the person, situation, as well as its hidden opportunities. This may lead us to design more holistic and effective solution for performance improvement. The next one is, why is context important? Context is not only important for meaning. Context is important because it helps you connect and create a relationship with the reader. It helps you communicate your point of view clearly, making it easier to understand. It allows you and others to be more creative. We come now to what is the importance of learning context. If you learn in a context like the one you have to perform in, your performance will be better. If you want people to be able to do new things, you will have to put them in a situation to perform the new things and give them a chance to practice. Context provide meaning and clarity to the intended message. Context clues in literacy will create a relationship between the writer and the reader, giving a deeper understanding. That's all. Thank you and God bless.